Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it's Harry Brelsford from SMB Nation. I'm coming to you live from the 22nd floor of Lincoln Square of Microsoft's facility in Bellevue, Washington. It's a stone's throw from the Redmond campus. And actually today I'm kind of doing a double dip because today is the IAMCP luncheon, the monthly luncheon. If you're not participating in that part of the community, please take a fresh look at them. So IAMCP.org, that's the International Association of Microsoft Certified Partners. And, they help us, help you, good for us, good for you. You should really get involved with these guys. So with that said, a couple of housekeeping items as always. I'll be down in the Bay Area next week, Tuesday, Wednesday. If any of you want to do the proverbial like a beer summit Tuesday night, reach out to me offline as we've done in the past. Then I'm at Microsoft Inspire July 9th through the 13th in the Washington, D.C. area, and Binary Tree, who is with us today. They'll be there as a premium sponsor themselves. And so catch us in Washington, D.C. And then finally, the other thing on the calendar for the purposes of this webinar would be ChannelCon in Austin, Texas, July 31st through August 2nd. And that's always a fun time. But we better just jump right into it. So we're talking about deriving value from Microsoft Office. We have a pretty big audience today showing that 365 is still a crowd pleaser. And with that said, Binary Tree has been a friend of the family for some time. And I want to bring in Craig Baldwin. Craig, in our rehearsal, I got confused. I thought you said you're in Dublin, Ireland, and sir, you corrected me and said you're in Delaware. So how's it going out there today?
It's a little on the warm side. We're enjoying a heat wave this week. It's been up in the 90s for most of the days. So thank you for your introduction there. And
sure.
Thank everybody for the opportunity to present at today's webinar and say good afternoon to everybody.
You bet. Well, let's just jump right into it. These people like value, and we're talking about driving value. So
sure. So let's jump right in and talk a little bit about driving value from Office 365. As you mentioned, my name is Craig Baldwin. I'm actually the manager of the Cloud Services Center for a company by the name of Binary Tree. Where we provide cloud enablement services and cloud value-add services to our customer base really on a global basis, and I happen to be based out of the Delaware location for our company here. So let's talk a little bit about our agenda for today. What are we going to do? We're going to take a look at Office 365 and its overall value proposition and what the promise of the Office 365 cloud means. And then we're going to share some of our own insights, sort of a status report on how organizations are realizing the value of Office 365 and the progress being made to accelerate the value proposition. And then we'll take a look at some requirements for accelerating value and some of the best practices for achieving maximum return on investment when it comes to Office 365 deployments and support. And lastly, we'll draw some conclusions, and then we'll hopefully open up the microphone, so to speak, for questions. So let's dive right in. Let's talk a little bit about Binary Tree first off, and what is our vantage point for speaking with respect to Office 365 migrations. As this slide shows, we've been helping our clients move to Microsoft platforms, including Office 365 and the previous iteration BPOS, for those of you who've been around for a while in the Microsoft ecosphere, for about 10 years now. We've migrated close to 7 million users into Office 365 and fully onboarded, and we're actively managing upwards of 4 million entitlements onboarding actively to Office 365 as we speak via our Cloud Services Center here that I manage. And we have assisted a wide variety of clients ranging from small and medium-sized businesses all the way up to enterprise customers running very large, complex Office 365 migration strategies. So we think we have valuable points of view and insights based upon our experiences when it comes to Office 365 migration strategies and tactics, and that's what we're here to share today with you via this webinar. So what is the value proposition for Office 365, and why has Office 365 become the most widely used enterprise cloud services platform by user count within the past year? And we're going to start by looking at the fact that Office 365 offers a very extensive range of applications for both individual productivity as well as team collaboration. And many of these products I think are familiar to us all here on the webinar in their on-premise forms, whether it's the ubiquitous Word, Excel, and PowerPoint applications, or Outlook for email and calendaring, or the hybrid Office Pro Plus implementations that we all support today. More recently, Microsoft has added some additional workloads that you may be familiar with, such as OneDrive for Business, SharePoint Online, Yammer for social media. It's a company that Microsoft purchased a few years ago. Project Online, Azure Rights Management, Power BI, and Skype for Business, to name a few. And Skype for Business in particular obviously offers enterprise instant messaging and telephony and video conferencing. The bundles that Microsoft offers on this slide, the different plans and options, range from basic business essentials plans with lower price points all the way up to available enterprise plans at higher price points. And it's really a question for each organization to choose their entry point and to determine where they will get the greatest value based upon the offerings that Microsoft has. And like any cloud platform, there are new license models and new products and features released on a rolling basis. Good example of that is Microsoft Teams that was released towards the beginning of this year to keep momentum in the marketplace for Microsoft's Office 365 services. So let's talk about enabling users to be more productive and collaborative. Office 365 brings really a very comprehensive range of tools to the party, which when used individually or increasingly in combination within team environments for collaborative purposes, can really deliver significant business benefits to companies in terms of end user productivity, in collaboration with others across company boundaries, and thus impact overall performance of the businesses that choose to use Office 365. Many of these business benefits are shown right here on this chart. They include the ability to work anywhere, using different forms or devices. They can share work files, meetings are more effective, team collaboration is vastly improved both within your company and in working with your business partners. Office 365 really does offer a broad and significant range of values to companies and organizations that choose to adopt the platform. So how can Office 365 help IT to provide more value? And this is where we get into really the business, what justifies making the investment into the cloud platform. And what we're trying to do with Office 365, the business strategy, is to take IT operations or the run components and transfer as much of that to Microsoft as is feasible. It's really all about reducing your spend that you have on operations or OpEx. It's patching, maintenance, upgrades, all of that becomes Microsoft's responsibility. You're really paying a monthly cost via a subscription price to make sure that you always have the latest and greatest user experience, rather than trying to somehow deliver that yourself, rather than trying to get budget approval for a massive expenditure every 3 years for an Office desktop license upgrade project. And a project which, quite frankly, many of us know is oftentimes a long, very complex endeavor that requires significant internal IT resource investments and monies. So Office 365 really enables you to spend more time on evolving your business instead, and investing in business applications that actually drive real value for your business as opposed to commodity IT services. So it improves your total cost of ownership of these solutions over time. And at the same time, and potentially really a much greater benefit when compared to cost reductions, is the increase in user productivity that delivers overall increased business productivities. This productivity realizes itself in many different ways. For example, companies being able to bring products and services to market more quickly, perhaps improve staff retention and engagement by delivering tools that users actually want to use day to day in their jobs, or via operating cost savings through more efficient processes, or being able to deliver efficient remote work options for people. In any case, Office 365 can empower many of these types of efficiencies and productivities. So let's talk a little bit about some statistics to help with that argument that we just went through. Forrester, a year or two back, studied the total economic impact of adopting Office 365 in detail, and they came up with some pretty startling conclusions as to the overall economic benefits that organizations can realize. And you'll see here on the slide whether it's return on investment, or ROI for short, net present value, or NPV. These are some business and accounting terms that you may or may not be familiar with, and payback on your ROI. As the chart indicates, the ROI delivered via improved productivities and performance shows that for companies, we see threefold return on investment of 321%, along with a net present value of almost $6,000 for each user, and that was actually measured over a 3-year period of time, was returned by adopting Office 365 and actually using it as it was intended. And the payback was achieved in a matter of months, which is pretty spectacular when you think about. And that's the case in this particular slide. This is for really geared toward more small, medium sized businesses. But even for larger businesses greater than 1,000 seats, you still have an ROI close to 200%, NPV of about $2,000 per user, and payback of 7 months, even for a larger organization. So whether you're small or large, there's a return on investment and a value proposition there for Office 365, and a payback within 1 year's time. That's pretty significant from the perspective of in justification from an investment perspective. So moving on, how is this value being realized? What's the broader experience of many organizations, and does it match up with the Forrester case study that we just reviewed? So here we'll start with a quote from a recent Gartner report. And we think this quote really speaks for itself, and I'll give you all a chance to review the quote there, and I'll read it out loud here. Application leaders overseeing migrations to Microsoft Office 365 will fail to maximize the return on investment unless they exploit the full potential of their cloud Office subscription. And that's from Gartner in January 2017, so only a few months ago. And I want to emphasize a couple of key phrases from this quote. The first is the word maximize, and the second is the full potential of their subscription. There's always a good case for Office 365 adoption. However, there is definitely a case to advocate for comprehensive platform adoption to really deliver the highest return on investment, net present value, and the quickest payback for your organization. The value proposition can be diminished when organizations only adopt smaller pieces of the Office 365 platform, because oftentimes you're actually entitled to adopt, from a licensing perspective and productivity perspective, more workloads than organizations typically take on. And let's take a look at, in the next slide, what Gartner's seen in their own analytics. And this is from about a year ago, May 2016 timeframe. But that said, this comprehensive and enthusiastic Office 365 platform utilization can prove elusive. This data from the Gartner report shows that many organizations do a fairly good job of adopting email and calendaring or Exchange Online there in the upper left-hand corner, about 70%. That's by no means 100%, but it's certainly the highest rated workload that we see here on the chart, followed by SharePoint Online, and then Office Pro Plus are around 50% for those two workloads. But beyond those, what we'll term primary workloads, adoption rates really aren't ideal. Even some essential workloads, if you were to talk to Microsoft, such as in the Office 365 suite, such as OneDrive or Skype for Business, or Intune, Mobile Device Management, or Yammer, they have relatively low levels of adoption as indicated on this slide. We've got 35% for OneDrive, for Skype for Business, 41% for OneDrive, only 12% for Yammer, and 8% for Intune as an example for device management. So, one of the things that we want to encourage as a lesson learned looking at these numbers is we really want to encourage a more comprehensive rollout and platform adoption approach be considered really from the outset when you're looking at migrating to Office 365. And we're going to talk a bit more about why we think that's a wise thing to consider when it comes to any migration to Microsoft's cloud platform. So this slide actually shows, I mentioned we're onboarding just under 4 million entitlements to Office 365 here at Binary Tree. So this is actually based on, to be exact, 3.7 million users managed by our onboarding center. And you can see our adoption percentages. So in our case, we actually see lower adoption of Exchange Online than is typical. 70%, I believe, was in the previous slide. We're seeing about 36% across our customer base. 21% for SharePoint Online, 15% for OneDrive and Skype for Business, and then about 3% for Yammer. This was a month in time example from a few months ago, just to be clear. So it's a 1 month snapshot, but it demonstrates the same struggle that organizations have in actually fully adopting the platform. Most of these organizations are purchasing an E3 license where they're entitled to a number of different workloads as part of that license entitlement. But we're not seeing them actually adopt those platforms in a holistic manner. So what do we do about this? What is the cause of the slow adoption of the cloud? And in our experience, there's really three primary contributing factors. The first of which, is what we'll call unnatural progression, and that is that the sequential rollout of cloud capabilities, does hinder the adoption of the cloud platform. So many IT organizations take a sequential approach to rolling out Office 365. So they'll often start with Exchange Online, which is the killer app in many cases, and they'll just focus on getting their Exchange mailboxes migrated over, and then they'll take a little bit of a breather, and then they'll go back and perhaps they'll take a look at SharePoint Online and start that up. And the problem with taking a sequential approach like that is that it's difficult. It really pushes out the timeline for generating that return on investment and seeing that payback that every organization really wants to see. Now that said, every organization has their own unique facets in play: culture, timing, people, other business priorities that inevitably impact adoption. We can't address every unique use case in this presentation, but we have seen some recurring themes that we've grouped here into these three headings. And so with respect to an IT skills gap, it really isn't intended to be in any way critical of internal IT departments, but we have seen a shortage of skills with the Office 365 workloads that impedes planning and remediation and eliminating blockers to getting to cloud adoption. And we understand that IT teams are always under pressure to do more with less, and in many cases the rollout, ironically, of an Office 365 project may not be a top priority. Projects like this are viewed as essential, but not urgent, and therefore other business critical projects get most of the available resource time, from an IT perspective. And lastly, based on our experiences, and perhaps in some ways the most critical component here on the slide, is that your end users aren't necessarily prioritized, and they're not provided with the proper support and encouragement required to embrace an Office 365 platform in a confident manner. Especially if users are coming from previous environments that are very different, if there are significant differences in the tool sets, changes in new features and functions, graphical user interface layouts, etc. These challenge points tend to contribute to lower levels of platform adoption. And many users still to this day are not digital natives, and so they're very hesitant to adopt a new technology. So delivering a greater level of support and encouragement can make a big difference for overall platform adoption. So just be sure that for your Office 365 deployment project, you include a component that captures the user experience and provides the required training and support. The other thing we've seen, and to address in a bit more detail, is that IT skills gap that's impacting cloud adoption. And this is a quick data point on skills shortage. Up to 85% of organizations indicate that they do indeed have a skills shortage of some kind that prevents or impedes cloud platform adoption. Moving to the cloud brings technical challenges in many areas. The phrase is almost used somewhat glibly these days. But we think in most IT organizations, there's a recognition that cloud adoption, it's a complex endeavor, and it involves areas such as applications, networks, security, help desk support, and the list goes on from a departmental perspective. And from a resource perspective, IT organizations are juggling many demands for cloud solutions across the business, including Office 365, and oftentimes it's difficult to juggle those various different demands, especially in a productive manner. So IT organizations can and do take advantage of many services in the marketplace to help them to manage cloud adoption, but it can still be difficult to devote the necessary resources that have to play their parts to deliver cloud solutions into the organization. And oftentimes these IT resources either don't have the right skills or don't have the cycles available to play their part. And these types of blockers impede cloud adoption, and even post-adoption can also introduce problems managing software as a service platforms once the migration has occurred. Most SaaS platforms are not comprehensive managed services, and your organization is still responsible for certain aspects of cloud administration once the migration has come to a conclusion. You still have to support the platform. So let's take a look at some why is end user adoption slowed? This is great supporting evidence here regarding the lack of attention on the end user experience for 4 of the Office 365 workloads on the chart. As you can see, users don't know what the service is available, what service is available to them via the top line. Less than 50% except for Skype for Business. So we can see 47% for SharePoint, 47% for OneDrive. So they don't even know that it's available to them in many cases. We don't see active champions for each service, which is the 4th line in the chart here. Senior management doesn't always prioritize platform adoption as per the 2nd line on the chart. And driving adoption is not a high priority per the 3rd line on this chart. So end users don't understand how they can benefit from the service, nor how to use it, as the 5th and 6th lines represent. So really what this chart tells us is a story of, there's clearly a lack of attention on user adoption, and it's a major impediment to platform adoption. So this chart is probably the most significant data provided in today's webinar from our perspective. Is you look at the relatively low percentages across the board here, and it really tells a story that we need to focus on the user experience and ensuring that the users understand the technology that we're rolling out to them and that they know how to use it. So with that in mind, what should organizations be doing about these challenges and issues that we just reviewed? What should they be doing to enjoy the return on investment and the net present value statistics that we reviewed? How can your organization accelerate value adoption and avoid the pitfalls that we just looked at on the slides to date in this presentation? And so we have some general recommendations here based upon our experiences here at Binary Tree. And I think like most, most IT folks are problem solvers in general. We need to tackle these issues in a programmatic and systematic manner. We need to put a structured and detailed plan together. So let's focus on how to strengthen end user adoption initially, since I think that's really probably the most important component. You need to create a formal user adoption program, actually create a plan that encourages user participation. It all starts with the proactive communication plan that focuses on the user's needs, addresses the benefits of each workload targeted for adoption, tells the users what is coming and how those workloads will help them to do their jobs better, specific to your organization. And ensure that the communications are well timed. You don't want to communicate too early. You also don't want to communicate retroactively. You want to make sure the communications are well balanced, that they have an evangelical component and enthusiasm, but they also need to be pragmatic and applicable to the user groups. And then lastly, ensure your user communications are tailored to your organizational culture, your demographics, your geographies, your services, and your industry verticals. And then we continue on into training, which is another critical element, getting your end users to a desired level of competence, whether it's a basic level of competence or a more advanced competence level, depending on the user and their needs, is determined by your organization's functional needs. For the vast majority, a basic competence level is usually sufficient, but we all have our power users that do require more advanced training. And lastly, support capabilities that really give end users access to quick and knowledgeable assistance when problems occur. Whether for incident response or software coaching, users need to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they have knowledgeable help and it's readily available as part of a good user adoption strategy. So next up is we'll talk a little bit about augmenting your cloud deployment capabilities. So this really has to do with addressing that skills gap that we talked about. It's moving more onto the IT side as opposed to user adoption. Just a few things to think about here and plan for really prior to your Office 365 migration project. One is we want to promote a successful, we really want to promote a successful Office 365 deployment. So your IT resources need ready access to technical onboarding expertise, knowledge of workload configuration options and capabilities, and data migration skill sets. You really need to think in terms of how you will provide these skills to your IT staff, how you will consume them, where will you source them from ahead of the actual migration project. So obviously taking a look at some specific areas that we think need to be addressed is you want to make sure as part of closing your cloud management skills gap that you think in terms of how will you manage your environment during and post migration. Focus on how you're going to manage it from an end user adoption perspective and configure your management approach to drive the value you desire from it. So as far as these three bullets on the slide, the three categories, you want to think in terms of automated account provisioning whenever possible, along with automated cloud management and monitoring services that permit your organization to proactively manage and monitor your Office 365 platform investments. And we consider, maybe even consider an Office 365 managed service that will handle many of these, what I'll term commodity operational components on behalf of your organization. A properly managed Office 365 environment delivers a reliable set of services that again delivers enhanced user adoption and productivity. So We're coming to the end of the webinar here today, so let's draw some conclusions based upon the information that we just went through. So let's start with another quote from our trusted advisors at Gartner that I think sums up the situation very well. And that is that Office 365 services provide new agility and capabilities. However, change can break processes, frustrate users, and interrupt productivity when not managed well. We think this quote puts it fairly well. We would probably add that Office 365 does offer a terrific set of workloads and tools. It offers effective management of deployment and ongoing support focused on delivering a productive end-user experience and enhanced user collaboration capabilities. And this platform really does enable your organization to maximize your benefits from the platform. And lastly, there's usually a second webinar that really builds on today's topics that we addressed. Perhaps it'll be scheduled at a future date where we'll brief you on Binary Tree's Surround 365 managed service, which was really designed to mitigate many of the risks and challenges that we reviewed today during the webinar. It's our service's primary goal to deliver the enhanced end-user experience and end-user productivities, and to maximize and realize the full potential of your Office 365 investment. So if you'd like to learn more about our offering, please feel free to visit the URL there on the screen at your convenience. And I just want to take a moment to thank you very much for your investment of time and participation in today's webinar.
Hey, Craig.
Yes.
Can't get away that quick, my friend. Just because you're in the first state of the union in Delaware, you can't run that fast. So we have a couple questions. Folks, be sure to use the question feature to ask your questions, and I'll be happy to recite those. But on that last slide, can you go back to that last slide for just a second? I want to maybe add a little value that this is actually you're spot on with this conversation about managed services, of course. You know, that's now becoming overused phrase in IT, but in particular, the compliance and security monitoring, that last point, is always popular. You know, you would be surprised. We did a poll. This is a funny story. We did a poll between Christmas and New Year's, which is typically a dead week, and we got over 100 responses. We were amazed, and it essentially said, do you work with state, local, or regional county government? You know, we're just putting it out there. Came back 42% of our people have some form of government-related activity. You know, we thought it'd be 10%. Well, once we got those kind of numbers from our polling, you know, 4 and 10, now we're talking compliance. Right, now we have a story. So I wanted to kind of hop onto that one. Are you up for a couple questions?
Sure, absolutely. That's why we're here.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me get these closer to me. Okay, number one, do you see the strongest business case for Office 365 being the cost reduction versus the on-premises solutions, or in the increased productivity gains? What has been your experience at Binary Tree?
So that's a really good question. I think cost reduction is certainly the simplest, probably the most tangible and immediate item that we can look at. You know, you're reducing your hardware costs almost immediately as you migrate to Office 365. Your subscription license costs move over to an OpEx budget item paid on a monthly basis, as opposed to large capital investments when purchasing permanent licenses. The longer term ROI, though, I think is definitely more focused on end user productivity gains, and as the presentation we just went through shows, you know, there are a number of challenges in actually realizing that return on investment and net present value for users. So it's definitely more difficult to achieve, and it takes more time to deliver and realize. So I think the answer is, you know, cost reduction in the short term, definitely something that's easy to justify. to management and to the folks who are responsible for the finances, with really the return on investment and you know, net present value and payback over the longer term.
Yeah, and I, if you don't mind, I would add to that, there's sort of a qualitative and tangible part, which, you know, it makes the MBAs cringe if we can't measure it. But, you know, darn it, 365 just works, man. I mean, I don't know how to put it. You know what I mean? Yes, we can save money. Yes, we can measure ROI. But there's nothing sweeter than traveling and getting off the plane and just logging on and doing what you do. It just works.
It does, absolutely.
You know, hey, I got another question. You talked about unnatural progression. Boy, that sounds exciting. What approach would you recommend instead?
Well, and that's a bit of a buzzword, unnatural progression. We tried to use something that would draw attention. What we're really saying there is that organizations tend to take more of a waterfall approach to deployments like Office 365. You know, you get onto Exchange Online first, and then you focus on other individual workloads in a serial manner. What we're really trying to encourage people to think about through this presentation and the materials is to look at a parallel approach. And toward your point, you said, you know, Office 365 just works, and I agree with you 100%. I also think that it works better when you're able to utilize the various different workloads together. Rolling out multiple workloads at the same time is perhaps a bit more challenging, you know, but I think it's the right thing to do, particularly with Office 365, because the integration points between the workloads are so rich. The products work very, very well together. So you're really going to see that return on investment and that increase in user productivity when you do not take a serial approach to roll out. And, you know, just kind of spitballing here, you know, whether you're going to look at rolling out on a work group basis or a departmental basis, since work habits oftentimes differ across different work groups and departments, you know, that type of approach generally requires more careful thought and a more detailed planning phase, but definitely can boost that return on investment and payback, you know, when it's done well.
Yeah, I would add some value. I mean, you know, we're all a product of our culture and what's in front of us. So try this on your size. That I'm a Slack fanatic. Okay, Slack has helped me. I think it's my ADHD. Somehow Slack, and between OneNote and Slack, it's better than any prescription. Let me tell you. And so Microsoft came out with Teams. And I've been playing with Teams since January. I'm going to say that formally launched in like 30, 60 days. You know, it's a beta for a while. And I'm going to find the love affair with Teams. Okay, I'm committed to it. There's a bunch of reasons why. I'm going to find that love affair. It is interesting. I mean, it's one of the more interesting parts of 365 I've seen in a while. And, you know, I'm going to have to reconcile some of my own biases and prejudices. But, you know, there's some there. And I'll tell you this. If you haven't worked with Slack, you're going to love Teams because you don't have any baseline to compare it to. And you're going to go, wow, that's really cool. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and I've done the same. We were relatively early adopters of Microsoft Teams here as well. I use it actively to manage my entire team and how we can collaborate across the different team members here in the Cloud Services Center. We store most of our documentation in that team in Microsoft Teams. We collaborate, you know, on various different topics, have conversations via the Teams interface. I wasn't a huge Slack person previously, so I guess I fall into that category where I don't have to live with the disappointment of not knowing what I don't have, perhaps. But I think that Teams definitely brings a lot of value, and as Microsoft continue, and that's the beauty of any kind of software as a service. You know, version 1 came out, like you said, it was really a beta product in the first couple of months. It's now on to release candidate, and it's now been to roll out. And I suspect that, you know, we will continue to see them iterate on that every few months to improve the product. That's the beauty, again, of adopting a cloud platform is, you know, you don't have to do these big upgrades from an internal IT perspective every couple of years just to get some measured amount of improvement to your workloads internally. Microsoft is doing that for you, and that's really where the value is to me. Is taking that elephant off your back and letting them manage that for you.
There you go. Hey, I think we've cleared the deck, Craig. So, with your permission, we should let these good people return to the work of the IT gods.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank you for quite frankly, an educational presentation. It allowed a lot of people to level set on what Office 365 is. That's always a good idea. Folks, we got a couple questions about, is the session being recorded? Yes, you'll get a thank you note. You'll get in the thank you note, you'll get some additional resources. Thanks to Binary Tree for supporting the community. And folks, we'll see you next week. It's a double dip next week. So Wednesday is the 5th installment with Grant on Azure on the MSP Tech Talk, and then the regular Thursday webinar, same bat time, same bat channel. Check it all out at smbnation.com under webinars. And if you're in the Bay Area, hit me offline if you want to do a Bear Summit next Tuesday night. We'll see you. We'll see Binary Tree at Microsoft Inspire July 9th through 13th. And then, again, hopefully see you guys at ChannelCon CompTIA July 31st, August 2nd. Craig, I'm out of breath. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for your time today. And see you at Inspire.
There you go, man. Okay, everybody have a great day.